Okay, well, what did we watch?
We watched Hellbender.
Hellbender. I'm Bender.
Hellbender. This is a 2021 movie, I think.
All right.
What were your... Okay, so
the
let's...
plot.
Yeah, let's talk about
The
what
basic
what
plot,
happened.
I don't want to, we don't have to go through the whole spiel, but pretty much the whole, the whole premise is like built around, you see kind of the intro and there's some foreshadowing and then it goes to the past.
Well, hold on. What happens in the intro?
The intro, you see this fleshy tunnel of sorts, and then you see a woman like full of blood and her hair's matted and just it looks very disgusting. And that's kind of like the very beginning. Then it goes to like you're kind of assuming that's like the foreshadowing part, and then it shows you like the past. You kind of don't know what era it's in, but then you see like a group of women gathering around a woman who's being hanged. She just has her hands tied, her face is covered, and then they pull her up. They don't drop her. They pull her up on a tree, and then she starts to suffocate, and then she dies, or supposedly almost. Then she starts twitching, and then she's like screaming. You're like, oh my God, what's happening? And then some woman busts out a revolver and takes care of her, tries to, and then all of a sudden you see her like turn into a fire. It's so funny trying to tell us, and then her face is on fire, and then that's like your intro. That's like then there goes to like a story of this mom and her daughter. It's like the modern day, and they try to live a normal life. The mom's like clearly like witchy, and like her daughter's not there. She's just like kind of like this awkward teenager figure who's like the mom is like sheltering them in like this mountain cabin and she's very like, again, like I said, sheltered. She doesn't want her to have friends, make friends, and things start to transpire when they meet different people that come to the house. There's like a hiker that's involved, and then if you want to keep, I don't want to give too much.
But, well, let's stop right there. So like she tells her daughter, I don't want you to get close to people because why? She tells her that she has an autoimmune disorder, right? Yeah. And getting too close to people is dangerous for her health.
Yeah.
But you come to find out as the story goes on that that's not quite the case. Mm-hmm. And in fact, like one of the teenagers that she meets as just she's going through a hike invites her to go and hang out, go into a pool party, and one of the guys says whenever she says what the autoimmune disease is that she has, he laughs and he says that that's something that only affects men. And she said, and then he says, the X part, you have your mother to thank for that. As far as like how it was passed down. Mm-hmm. So they, at this point in the movie, like she is doing the kinds of rebellious things a teenager would do. Her mom is trying to shelter her. She sneaks off to meet friends, to hang out, to not do anything bad, but just do things that maybe her mom would not want her to do. And then eventually the friends pour out a couple shots of tequila, and instead of having the worm at the bottom of the bottle, they pull out an earthworm, right? And then they put the earthworm in one of the cups. And it just so happens that this girl gets the cup, and she drinks it, even though she kind of protests. She says, I'm a vegetarian, I don't want to do this, and they kind of pressure her into it. So, they're doing the kinds of things that you'd sort of expect from a teenage, a rebellious teenager. She drinks it, and then she sort of goes crazy. She goes kind of feral. Yeah.
So she goes feral, and then, then they it's kind of montage throughout. Like she kind of wants to know more about her family, like her grandma. There's like this book in the room in their house that you have to gain access by putting your hand over the symbol, and the key appears through your hand. And then inside this secret room is like a book that more or less it's kind of like a foreshadowing. It kind of tells them about the future a little bit, like more in like I don't know what they see. They probably just see visions that aren't necessarily complete. But then her mom notices that she's becoming more interested in the things that cause her to feel like this. Like when she ate a worm, she's like, well, why did I feel like that when I ate this worm? Well, she talks about like eating living things gives you power. Like when you're full of fear, you're full of power or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, it's no secret to her that she is a witch.
Yeah.
They're both witches. See, whenever the book, like towards the end of the movie, they make it seem as though the book is almost this hidden away chronicalization of the mother's life. Because she, the daughter, says at the end that I've seen your dreams, the things you did, all the things you're trying to protect me and shelter me from. Her mom is very much a sort of a do as I say, but not as I do, which is, like a lot of movies between a mother and a daughter is like the mother trying to raise her daughter the quote unquote right way and not really not really wearing her own life on her sleeves because she feels as though if she does that, it will just send her down that path. But, ironically enough, the more that she tries to keep her on this sort of straight and narrow, the more that she wants to indulge herself.
Yeah.
Like indulge herself by killing a creature and feeding off of it and becoming more powerful and learning what it's like to be a witch. And it's
well, before we get into that,
go ahead.
the kind of the ending. Well, the one part we left out was like during this time when she ate the worm. Like there was a part where like Izzy, the female protagonist, we're talking about the daughter, she becomes to the point where she's with her friend Amber, who she was like, that's one of her friends that she like was swimming with and like did all these rebellious teenager things. She like grabs her by the neck, and then Amber was like, whoa, like you're taking it too far. We're not friends anymore. So then towards the end of the movie, then you see this part where she wants to rectify this relationship, and then Amber's like, you're a freak, dude. I don't want to hang out with you.
She gets wigged out because she hands her back her berets her barrettes that she took when they had first met, and she finds it extremely weird that A, she took it, and then B, she's trying to return it over a year later.
Yeah. So it just felt very strange. And then at the end, this is where the mother's like figuring out that the daughter she's raising is far too interested maybe than for her own good, and becomes very powerful because she's learning things from her mother's book and learning things from her mother about their, I guess, history. And so then the mother goes to the basement and she can hear Amber's whining, or groaning for help and pleading for help. And she goes to this basement. There's a chest, and she opens it, and there's this hole, and it's kind of back to where we started with like this fleshy cave. And so she crawls through it, and there's Amber, like begging for her to save me. And, just thinking when she was alone, she says, she wanted to help her. Then her daughter Izzy's there, and now you kind of assume that she's more privy to their past, and again, very powerful, very strong. Whereas opposed to the beginning, Izzy's she doesn't know, the reasons behind why her mom does certain things, like don't hang out with people, I'm trying to protect you, blah, blah, blah. But now it's more like he's embracing more of her grandmother that you really don't know about, and the lifestyle that they lived, I guess, as witches.
Yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, she's like cutting loose. Like, she's fully embracing. She's been sheltered her entire life from all of this stuff, and yet it's a huge component of her life that she's trying to understand.
So, I think so. Then, like, the whole ending is kind of like the ending kind of like bundles everything up and ties it in a neat package for me, because the ending was the daughter saying. She was asking about her grandma, like, oh, what happened to, not even to grandma. She's like, what happened to your mom? And, she was like, she doesn't really say, but there's some connotation that the mom ate her grandmother, which in the very beginning, the grandmother was the one who was hanged. but then when you eat your mother, I guess you give birth to a child, because even Izzy was like, I don't want to have a little Hellbender. So when you eat your mother, I guess you bestow a daughter. I guess is kind of what they're saying.
Yeah, it seems like that's the way that they
Yeah, they're
both
phrasing it.
procreate and also the way that they die. I
Yeah.
mean, she says in the movie that she
Yeah.
thinks 147 years old, the
Yeah,
mother.
the mom is 147,
But
she doesn't look like
I
that.
feel like that's a pretty good job of like summarizing the movie. So,
Yeah.
so what did you, I don't know, what stood out to you? What did you think of the movie?
If I had to say like generally, I think the movie to me was, I think there were some things I really like about it. There's some things I really didn't like about it. I'll say like the whole like, I don't want to say vibe, but I guess the vibe of the movie was very like not as loud as like a horror movie I'm used to, especially about witches. Like it's more like jump scary, more horrific. I mean, there's some horrific imagery at times, but like it was very subtle how it portrayed like witches. Like it wasn't, like devil this, devil that. Like it was very subtle, like with the symbolism and kind of especially like between the mother and daughter. Like it felt like almost very innocent sounding, at least. I think the music is good. I think that like the sound was I think the way they did like the sound effects are great. To me, it's not like a slow burn. It's just kind of like the whole movie is like a mellow horror, I guess, is kind of what I was thinking. It's subdued. It's not loud like, like horrific stabbings and horrific, like when I think of The Witch, I think of the very beginning of the Witch movie, which you may have seen, but they like literally take I'm not going to say it on this podcast, but they take a human that is not an adult and like they literally show it being ground up. And to me, it's like, that is stando traditional, like witchy type stuff. And that to me is like, it's very jarring, but like this, maybe it felt a little campy too at times, right?
Yeah.
There are some parts that, and I even told Aaron, like it felt like a B-flick summer film that you would just like put in the background and be like, this is like, it's like something you don't have to watch throughout to be appreciative or to understand really the whole plot line.
I think something that was pretty unique about this, I mean, I guess a couple things. Like the one thing I think is pretty neat about this movie is that like tonally it's all over the place, but I think it works. Like it's, like you said, like there are parts that are kind of cold and dreary and very, like your typical horror sort of feeling and the overall just like mood and the way that it's filmed and the color grading and all that. And then there are times where it's like just silly. Like they're just like there's a scene where the mother and the daughter are kind of cutting loose. Like imagine the modern version would be like they have a drink together and they kind of like they're telling stories or whatever. These two witches are eating maggots and they're throwing up blood on each other.
Yeah,
like,
but they're laughing and it's very like drunkardly activities.
It is so goofy and yet like it all really works. And I think that it's because like what I think is pretty unique about this movie is it's very like slice of life for a lot of it. A lot of it is like there's no real threat. There's no real like there were parts of the movie where at least me personally I thought like, oh, it's going to go down this path where her mother's protecting her from an like some sort of evil being or something.
Like
and that's not what happens at all.
Yeah.
Like and you get a chance of seeing this girl who is sheltered. You see her kind of living her life. And of course there's like actual scares. There's some of the unique like aspects of horror where it's like spooky and there are like horrific scary things. But overall, like it kind of feels like it's just like watching almost like I'm trying to think of like have you ever seen Lady Bird?
No.
Like I'm thinking of like these like this coming of age story of like a girl
like
who's just like learning what it's like to have friends and learning what it's like to go from being under her mother's watch the whole time and it's very interesting. Like I just think tonally it's everywhere, but it still kind of works.
Yeah, I think it's it's such like a unique, it's like a witchy drama. Like it's a witchy kind of, it's just like a coming of age film, but with witches. Like it just, and it's not, an emphasis isn't on the witch part because like, I mean, that's obviously one of the biggest parts about it, but like, I think it does a good job of like making it more about maybe just being comfortable. Not even if you took the theme of witches out, maybe just like a daughter becoming what her mother was or wasn't or doesn't want. Or, you know what I mean? So it's like it's definitely unique in that aspect, and like the mom's doing things that you know you think are like just like abhorrently evil. Like she basically what they call like dusting a guy. Basically, there was a trespasser, which again you kind of feel like is you know bad, right? But you almost feel like the mother was doing something to protect her daughter. Because this guy comes up, he's like, I've been lost, I'm hiking, and this is like the beginning of the movie almost. I'm lost, like I'm trying to find my daughter. My niece is about the same age as you, and then the daughter's like, I'm sick, don't get close to me. Then she goes back to the house, and then the mom's like, just follow me, and the mom's like, are you married? He's like, no. Do you have any kids? No. And then she like picks him up with her witch force and then like pulls him closer, like cuts his hand and drinks his blood or tastes his blood. And then she's like, I'm going to go ahead and kill you. So she turns him into dust. And to me, that was like, it felt very strange because I think they show you how powerful she is, but also like there felt like there might have been a better purpose that you don't really get.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like you're expecting this guy to die, but you don't expect it.
Yeah,
quite
like he
that.
just gets he gets obliterated, and then it's the funny thing is that's all that's said about him until like towards the end of the movie, where like it's like a year later, and there's an officer who comes up on their property, kind of in the same way, and is like, "Do you know anything about like we're seeing a lot of like dead bodies around?" And at that point, you're guessing like the daughter has something to do with it because she's embracing this witchy part of her life, and she's consuming living creatures, and you see the carcasses. And I think the mom's kind of privy to that fact too. Like she's like, what this is, it's starting to get a little crazy because you're seeing so many like deer corpses, and maybe this has something to do with like the missing man.
Yeah, I mean, like this story exists in lots of movies, lots of TV shows, lots of other, I mean, just lots of mediums where there's a parent, their kids, they're protective of their kids, but as they get older, there's this sense of like your kid is becoming their own person, and there's a little bit of distrust. You're like, are you keeping something from me? Mm-hmm. I mean, there are these animals, and yeah, I suppose it's possible that a coyote had picked its corpse apart, but you also have taken an interest in living creatures and learning about yourself. So there's this sort of like she knows that she knows kind of thing, and they don't really address it like parents with their kids often do. A lot of times they don't confront each other in the ways that they ought to for those kinds of healthy discussions. But I think this movie is it's just interesting because it's like I find both of these characters, the mother and the daughter, to be pretty interesting. And it's like they just said, okay, but like, what if they were witches? Like, what kinds of things would they talk about? What kind of things would they do? What kind of things would they fight about?
Yeah, it feels like a witchy drama, but then it also adds elements of like things that you, like regular people can understand, like, oh, we get drunk by drinking alcohol. Well, they get drunk by eating, beating maggots.
Right,
but they do it in a way that's like not disgusting. They just do it in a way that's like, I'm not gonna say relatable, but it's.
I mean, her mom talks about it like she's hiding weed from her daughter.
Yeah.
Like, they make it seem like she's got this stash, and when she opens the lid, it's maggots. It's like probably hundreds of them just crawling around.
Yeah.
I will say I was disappointed because you and I had both read the description, and they said that it was metal music, and we're like, oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
and it was really like
This is not metal
very
music.
approachable alt rock. It's
Not
like,
even it was. It's that the mom plays the bass and the daughter plays the drums, so you can imagine
yeah,
what that would sound like.
it just this sort of a very very tame. I was hoping it'd be a little bit more.
A little more metal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that, okay, so one thing we had talked about whenever we're watching this is like, I think that wherever they film this, I think the cinematography is great.
I
I
think
think the outside shots look amazing.
Yeah, the deep forest ones look good. I think, again, there is some campy elements, maybe not in the cinematography, but like in some of it, like the effects, like the book, when they put their hand on the book, it's like a very much like 1970s trippy acid, like you just start to see a bunch of flashing images. You know, to me, that's like, it just feels, I mean, I guess maybe that you're just experiencing what they experience, but, you know, I think most of the time, like right now, the up close shots, I think the forest shots, like the fact that you could tell they live remotely, like it's, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the outdoor shots where they're really wide and you get this big, broad view of the forest, which looks great.
Yeah.
And like a lot of times it's like misty outside, and the interior shots are really tight, and there are a number of places like when they're playing music together or towards the end, it's so dark it almost looks like they're in the void, like talking to each other. It's I don't know, like I feel like this movie, I don't know any of these actors or actresses. I haven't heard of them. I haven't seen them in anything else, but like I feel like they just did really well.
Yeah,
like this is just a really well executed movie.
I was just about to say that, like the plot itself, like the story was like 80 minutes long.
Yeah, like
I think from
or
the
something.
start to the finish, it's one of the better like horror films that like
It's
tells us
tight.
exactly, it tells a story that you don't know anything about in the beginning and finishes it, and it feels like complete. Like there's no like overhangs, there's no like, well, what about this, like, and you know, I say the word spoon feeding, like sometimes you don't want things to be spoon fed with you, but like some films, to be fun, they don't need to be anything more than just like what they are. And that's what this movie is. It just does a good job of being what it is and doing a good job, and then making it like there's nothing else. You know what I mean? Like it's neatly, like I said at the very beginning, it's like tight, it's like wrapped in a bow. Like it's just, and it's given to you. I don't know. It's just, there was a few interactions that I didn't like. And I think the officer, like one of that officer one, or like even, we're kind of having the movie in the background, but like this whole drum scene with the drum kit being outside, and then like the person coming back to their house because they're sneaking into someone's pool. Like the homeowner comes back and was like, "Why are you playing on my vintage drum set?" It's just like, why is a drum set outside?
Yeah, near a pool,
and
like
it's vintage
in the forest, like
where it's humid. Like,
yeah, it looks brand new. It doesn't look vintage at all.
it's like there's a couple things that you're like, maybe they could have done different, or like that when the officer, like the police officer, talks to the mom and the daughter, you're just like, it just feels like very forced, silly, like interaction. But it's like you can't, it's okay. Like you don't, it doesn't have to be like a, you know, like a film with A actors or actresses to be like good. So, you know, it's forgivable.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I mean, I definitely think it has like some faults. Like I think that I thought the ending was a little weak. I think that it was it
felt a little rushed,
sort of abruptly,
yeah.
Which isn't a bad thing. But like I think that the ending could have been stronger. I think they could have spent a little more time on it. I think that the I still really feel like they could have pushed more of the mother-daughter sort of like tenseness about like her mother really not dreading, but just like being afraid of her kid becoming like the witches of old.
Yeah.
Like she says her mother ate half a village.
Yeah.
You know, like I guess what I'm saying is I think that there was a lot more they could have
Yeah.
they could have done to enhance that. Like, I think that in some ways, the shortness of this movie kind of hurts it, because I think that they lack some of that.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that this is a movie that needs to be 2 hours, but
Yeah.
I think that they could have just continued to push some of the ideas that they had, because I thought that they were good, but I think that I just wanted a little bit more of them.
I think I would say like the way that I would put that, like I would have liked to hear more about the grandma, and like, because the daughter Izzy felt pretty attached to, like, well, who is she, like, and you kind of just hear things via the mother, and aside from the 5 minute, not even 5 minutes, like couple minute intro from what you don't know is the grandma until later on, so there's little to infer. And I agree. I think they could be, they could have dove into that a little bit to give you more meat, but I was actually kind of surprised how I felt with this movie at the end of it, because we were kind of like chit-chatting throughout, kind of as we normally do, but like there are a lot more parts to scrutinize. But in the end, I kind of felt like I didn't dislike it as much as I kind of like had thought I was going to. I guess I have, like, I always try to have I tamper my expectations with horror films, because there's a lot of, like, I feel like they don't do it very well. But I don't know, like I was surprised how much I actually enjoyed the movie.
I think, I mean, I think, like, really, like any movie, I think you should walk in and, I don't know, I avoid trailers, because I just want to walk into the movie and just, at the very, really just think, I want to be entertained. And I was entertained. Like, I thought that, I think that, like, it was actually around this time, early in this movie, that you had pointed out that it is very much like a summer horror movie. Like, in a lot of ways, it feels like you're maybe watching a more modern, like, I Know What You Did Last Summer, or Scream, or, maybe not quite that mainstream, but like in a way that it feels perfectly appropriate to be laughing, and it's like a popcorn flick, like just fun.
That's a
like,
good point. Yeah. That's it. That's
so,
a good point.
I mean, I don't know. Like, I guess, like, I don't have too much more to really say. I liked it. I think that it was good. I thought that it was really interesting. I think that they could have pushed some more of the ideas that they had about what it's, what is it like to be a witch in 2022? I don't know. Like, I think it'd be cool to know, like, what's it like to be a modern witch? Like, I think that'd be pretty awesome to see more of this.
Yeah.
Not that I'm saying they should make a sequel. They should not make a sequel for this. But I think that, like, if they had I'd be interested to know, like, what was left on the cutting room floor. What were some of the things that they had not included? Because I think that they could have been added.
Yeah.
Unless they just sucked, then fine.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's really not much else to say. I would agree. I would say that I was surprised with this movie. It does seem like a summer, like a popcorn flick was a good way to put it. There's some, of course, I can sit here and scrutinize a lot of things about it, but I think for the most part, like, if this kind of horror genre is your thing, like if you like coming of age, if you like, I don't want to say it's like a teeny bop type film, but like it has some elements of that. Like, I think it's fun. I think it's a fun watch. I think if you watch it with people and just like can chuckle about the things, like in the end, you kind of want to shake your head, and be like, yeah, that brought the ending again could have been different, but like it felt like it brought it home, and it was like, to me, it really capitalized at the end. Like, again, the best way to put it for me is like it like sealed the box and tied it off, and it was like, this is what you get, and you're like, that was good,
Yeah, I think that, like, even just that last scene that we had playing in the background is like just this caricature of a guy who's yelling at these teenagers for being in his pool, and he's like, he almost comes off as like the nerdy 80s or military parent that would be like in an MTV music video. He's like, you dang kids,
you come
like,
with me.
Yeah, almost just like this caricature. I think that, like, overall, this is just an interesting twist on a story you've probably heard a million times, but I think that it's I think that the characters are interesting. I think that the acting is good. I think that it's fun. It's funny in some spots.
Like unintentionally. Yeah, it's not intentionally funny, but there are parts. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's intentionally funny when they're puking on each other.
I guess that's true. That is what
I think that they are like going for some really just like goofy,
witchy fun.
Like, I mean, we're watching this and just like dying because they're just.
I will say, because we're watching this, like, I have to make one more point. Like, they make the mother in the beginning look so like strong and like creepy, and it's funny how I feel like they do shift that feeling at the very end, where the daughter feels almost like she's, kind of like approaching an out of control state, because the mom is like, at the very beginning, you're thinking, wow, this mom is like, she is crazy. Like, she has to be a witch. And she's like, well, yeah, I'm a witch. And also like, I'm in charge here. But then you kind of like, that slowly becomes the opposite. Like the daughter feels like, she's like, no, I know who my grandma was, and I know how this hellbending stuff works. So
yeah, I mean, in a lot of ways, I mean, she's a kid who has no idea of restraint. She's she's not a fully developed adult. She has no concept of, yes, there is this tremendous amount of power, but you can't just use without any sort of like constraint or consideration or thought. I don't know. I think that there's
so much that could be told about this story.
Yeah, I think that, like I said,
My Life as a Teenage Witch, the cartoon series.
but I think, I think that there's like, the stuff I like is like this idea that these people, they put their hand over this emblem on a door and a key shoots out of their skin, and then they can take the key and they can open the door. And it's like, I'm glad that they don't have this sort of like audience proxy person. Like, I could see in another movie, like if this were a Marvel movie, they'd be like, so that just happened.
Yeah.
And then
did you see that?
And then then you'd have somebody who's the audience proxy being like, what just happened? And then they'd say, oh, well, in ancient times, we needed a way of keeping secrets, and this was the best. They don't say any of that. Yeah. It's just like,
this is how
it's just
she got access to this room, by sticking her hand.
It's just a cool thing that you can use your imagination to just consider how it might be used or what they do with it.
Yeah.
It's just it doesn't, it's not spoon feeding you all this lore.
Yeah. Like, you just sit back and enjoy, and then you're gonna be glad that you just, I don't know. Like, I really like this film.
Yeah, I mean, like, we talk about like rewatchability on a lot of these. I don't know that this has a tremendous amount of rewatchability. It might be one that you come back to like maybe a couple of years later, but I don't know. Like, I think that I don't know that I feel like I would have, now that I've seen it, I don't feel like it's one of those movies where if you watch it, you're like, oh, I'm gonna understand so much more. It's like, nah, it's not really.
And that's okay. It's like a movie. Right. It's a TV. I don't want to ruin it by saying it's like a movie meant for TV, but I could easily see it being like one of those where you pop in and out of the room, and then you could pick up and feel like you still kind of get the story.
I mean, I will say though that this is the kind of movie that I feel like if you pitched to somebody at Netflix, they'd be like, that's great, we should make it an 8-episode series. And it's like, it's just not that rich for it. I think that it really, I think it could do more with more time, but I think it really, really benefits from a really compressed sort of like runtime. I think that if this were like, a mini series or like a 6-episode series,
you're just gonna lose,
season or whatever. It just I feel like it would be so drawn out.
Yeah.
It just does not have quite that much to say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would recommend it. I really enjoyed it.
I did too. And you know what they say?
They say I'm a worm.
I was literally gonna say that. We are just worms.